Uncle Ma'at, everybody. Uncle Ma'at. Yeah, I know. I know. The Divine Cycle is one of my favorite songs. In fact, it's my favorite song from a new Ambiance album. So when I hear it, I just want to dance. It always makes me want to dance. So I'm sort of just like, why are we on the couch? I need to move. But we're here today for our regularly scheduled communion due on Enter. So before we get into the roll call and our message of the day, we're going to start off with our Sunday prayer. So can everyone join me in saying Amatu and Panatir? Sawek tuam and Panatir. Audu Aoma. Keti Paharu. The translation: give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do as today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netaru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'aksi, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Amen Ma'at. Ma'akaru. Zuanetzer. All right, everybody. So where y'all joining us from? It's time to dive into the roll call. We want to see you all sharing where you're hailing from, where you're joining us from. It's looking a little light today. But like that's okay. Even though, we only got a few of y'all here today, I still want to know where y'all coming from. We still want to know who's connected with us and where y'all chiming in from. I see Ashanti is joining us in East Orange, New Jersey. Yes, doing that too. Philadelphia is in the building. We got the current head, Rosetti Kepper, here with us in the room, as well as the Sir Chef Armin Kau is in the building today. Newark, New Jersey is here. Indiana. Tanita, that seems like a new name. Nice to meet you, Tanita. We got Hillside, New Jersey, Patterson, Edmond, Oklahoma, Belleville, New Jersey. More East Orange representing in the house. Arizona is here. Give thanks. Colette from Queens. The Duat. I hope that means a meditative space. Duanetta for the ancestors that joined us. Well, I don't know. Can they do the chat though? Can the ancestors do the YouTube chat? Newark, Delaware is here. Duanetta. Give thanks. Give thanks. Yes.
That's all 5 people.
That's everybody, right? Yeah, Duanetta. It's really good to see you all. Bloomfield, New Jersey is also here. Give thanks, making your presence known. Newcastle, Delaware, that's what's up. Yes.
A Newcastle.
Anu, yes. Yeah. And Akron, Ohio. Oh, yeah. Hanut Sekamu, our sister from New Onset, yes. Boston, one of our sisters from the Shrine of Ma'at is also on. So shout out to Shrine of Ma'at. Shout out to New Onset Temple Dua for joining us today, both of you. So good to see y'all. Give thanks. Yes, that's what's up. All right, everybody. Dua for chiming in. Dua for making time today. We always are grateful and appreciative for those of you who make time to join us for these services, because I know that y'all have other stuff y'all could be doing. And instead, you all choose to prioritize this space. We choose also to prioritize being here for you, despite anything that may be going on, despite other things that may be coming up, despite family, despite other work, despite Even the days where we feel lazy and we just want to stay in the bed, we still pull it together and get it here for you all. And we're grateful that you all pull it together and get here for us as well. So it's good to see y'all, even if it's just 5 of us, even if it's just 10 of us. It is more than 10 of us though, between Facebook and YouTube. It is, the numbers is coming up. So some of y'all just late, but Dua Nata for those of you who here. Dua Nata. This one's gonna be a short one today. I have a few things to share, but no, I'm not gonna keep y'all for very long. The first thing I want to talk about is the approaching spring equinox. I want to just make you all aware that the spring equinox is approaching, and Nasib mentioned last time that, you know, or he pointed out last time that a lot of conscious folks like to talk about the spring equinox as though it's the real New Year, right? Like the New Year's Eve is not the real New Year. The spring equinox is the real New Year, right? And so it's approaching, and energetically it's a powerful time of the year. And if we really do see it as the real New Year, then what's our responsibility as conscious people and spiritual people to harness this energy and use this energy and celebrate this energy, right? Not just to acknowledge that it's coming or to acknowledge that it's here, but then to also to be in tune with the cycles. Being in tune with the cycles is part of the example of what our ancestors has taught us in terms of how it is that we're supposed to live and who it is that we're supposed to be. So we can't just make comments about the cycle. We also then have to make choices and choose to live in ways that demonstrate reverence to and adherence to and communion with the cycles, right? Like in tuneness with the cycles, in oneness with the cycles, right? So the spring equinox approaches, and the spring equinox is significant because it is the opportunity or the feeling that we get of newness and the initiatory energy. One of the things that signals the spring equinox is the bringing in of the Aries energy, and Aries is considered the first sign of the zodiac, right? And so as far as the zodiac calendar is concerned, the spring equinox and the initiation of Aries energy is the start of the year, right? So the zodiac agrees with y'all conscious folks that the spring equinox is the start of the year, right? Aries energy as a cardinal fire sign is all about that initiation energy. Wabet Kisa mentioned, we were on the call with our initiates a little while ago, and she mentioned that energy can feel very similar to Haru energy, and I would absolutely agree with that assessment, right? You have in that Aries energy this power of the will, right? You have this desire to initiate. You have this desire to be motivated, this desire to move. You have this fire in the belly, right? You have this energy, right? And here we are coming out of this cold, dreary, dark winter season, right? And Aries energy springs upon us, and it lights a fire in us, and it pushes us, and it motivates us, and it reignites our will, and it causes us to want to do things and to make things happen, right? And so the question that I would ask you all to ask yourselves is, what is the thing that you are going to be motivated to do when Aries energy pops off? When you start to feel that Haru pulse, like in your body, right, as we get to the spring equinox, as you start to feel that inner fire be reignited, and that power and that drive and that will starts to come forth out of you, what exactly are you planning to direct that into? What exactly do you intend to do with that energy? Because we have two choices, right? We could choose to allow that energy to express itself without direction, without purpose, without intention, right? And then that energy we just motivated, we just fired up, we just inspired, we just feel like doing stuff, but we don't really have a plan. We don't really have a goal in mind. We don't really, so now all that energy and all that fire and all that motivation is going into what exactly? It's not going into your plans. It's not going into your future. It's not going into the creation of your divine reality, because you haven't set the intentions for your divine reality, because you haven't created the plans, because you haven't created the framework, because you're not living intentionally, right? Or you do have a plan, and you do have intentions. And when that energy comes and that energy starts to fill you up and fire you up, you're ready to properly direct it, to properly channel it into the things that you want and you need for yourself. A lot of people look down on the winter season, again, because it's so cold, because it's so dreary, because it's so dark. But I want to just remind us that this season was meant for our hibernation. And in hibernation, we're meant to be going within, right? The fall season is the time where we harvest all of our experiences, all of our successes. We learn the lessons of our failures. We learn what we did wrong. We learn what we could have done differently. We learn where we misstep. We review. We assess, right? And we also celebrate the things we got right. That's what the fall was for. It's about all of the lessons, right? All of the harvests of our experiences. The winter season, then, is about processing what we learn. It's about figuring out how to take the harvest from the fall, to take the successes and the failures, and figure out how to make adjustments to our desires, our plans, our intentions, our goals, so that we can have more success and live with more intentionality in the next cycle to come. So the winter season is all about reflection and absorption. It's about making adjustments. It's about refining the plan. It's about making the plan better. It's about adjusting the things or learning the things or reassessing the things that need to be reassessed. In some cases, the winter season is going to cause you to look at your life plans and look at what the structure that you have, and it's going to cause you to be like, all of this just needs to get thrown out. I'm scrapping everything and I'm starting over. And in that winter season, you're realizing, I don't even want this stuff anymore. I want something different, because you're going within yourself and you're reflecting on who you are now and where you are now and what you've learned and what you need for yourself. And from all of that reflection, from all of that internal work, from that hibernation, is coming a new vision, a new goal, a new plan, and a new intention for your future, right? So when the spring equinox comes, we need to be prepared for it, right? We cannot just get to this place where we have the fire and we have the motivation and we have the will of Heru pushing us into nothing, pushing us to accomplish nothing, pushing us with no aim and with no direction, right? That's when our Heru power, that's when our divine capabilities can become ispetic even to us. Ispet meaning not of Ma'at. It can be damaging even to us to be filled with fire and filled with motivation and have nothing positive or righteous to direct it into, right? So now the next 2 weeks are crucial, because either you have a plan and you take the next 2 weeks to refine and to regroup and to focus and to power that plan up, or here we are today and we don't have a plan, and now we have 2 weeks to finish the work we were supposed to be doing this winter season, right? We have 2 weeks to get it together before that Heru fire comes in, okay? Again, as Kemetic spiritual people, from the example of our ancestors, we know that we're not supposed to just be living haphazardly in our lives. We are not supposed to be chosen. We are supposed to choose. We are not supposed to take orders. We are supposed to direct and decide, right? We are not supposed to follow. We are supposed to initiate. We are supposed to begin. We are not supposed to just meander around. We are supposed to create our reality, right? So that's the divine charge of the cycle that we're in. And I wanted to make that reminder to all of us as we approach the spring equinox, as we approach this opportunity to really get our plans underway, because the things we do and we don't do in this moment and in every moment, that's what determines the future life that we have for ourselves. That's what determines what we live ourselves into. That's what determines the people that we will be, right? The decisions that we make today determine the people that we become tomorrow. And so what are you going to decide for yourself? That's the question on the table. Quite frankly, that's the question on the table every single day for each and every one of us. What are we deciding for ourselves? Are we deciding to be people of Ma'at? And so every single day we choose to bring ourselves and our lives more into balance by taking decisive actions that are going to cultivate and create harmony, reciprocity, righteousness, and truth and justice in our lives and in the world around us? Or are we just going to be agents of chaos and then we just do whatever we want, do whatever we feel, and we live ourselves into the consequences of those actions and choices? That's constantly over and over again the choice that we make. And so I encourage all of us to make the choice, especially in this year of Ma'at. We know that Ma'at is the netzert that governs this year. So it's even more significant for us to be mindful of how our choices keep us in order, keep us in harmony, keep us in alignment with the cosmos, with our inner selves, with our community and the world around us. How are we staying in alignment? How are we maintaining order? And if our lives are not yet in order, that's okay, because now is the opportunity for you to do the work and take the steps that you need to take in order to get your life in order and to bring your life into harmony and to bring your life and your existence into balance and to affect change in that way. As conscious people, we're often thinking about especially those of us who have nationalistic tendencies, we often are thinking about, like, how do I bring all of the black community? I want every black person, right? Like I gotta bring all black, I gotta educate every black person. I gotta bring every black person into awareness. We gotta emancipate all African minds, right? Like we have this big vision of like saving all black people. And I share that vision. Don't get me wrong. I ain't saying that it's not important or valuable to save all black people, but you can't save nobody if you don't save yourself, first and foremost. So let's not worry about emancipating anybody else's mind until your own mind is emancipated. You cannot bring nobody else's life into Ma'at if your life is not in Ma'at, period. Because how can you be an example of what that's supposed to look like? How can you attract others or convince others or encourage others or inspire others or remind others if you're not focused intentionally on what it means and what it takes and what it requires to live in Ma'at? If you don't show people what it looks like to do that and how you can be successful and prosperous doing that, then how can you bring others into that awareness or that awakeness, right? That's actually how we affect change for all black people everywhere, is by growing ourselves, developing ourselves, and one person at a time, we impact each other and we grow each other, and then eventually whole swaths and these big groups of African people now are liberated, emancipated, stronger, prosperous, successful, smarter, etc. One person at a time. It's not going to be this whole mass exodus thing that's going to happen. It's going to be each and every one of us committing ourselves to the work and committing ourselves to Ma'at, little by little, day after day. And by doing that, improving the quality of our lives, and then that encourages and inspires others to want to improve and advance the quality of their own lives. The second note that I want to make for today actually it's a good segue into that about how we improve and enhance the quality of our lives, and also how we be examples to each other in how we do that. 2 weeks ago, Nasset was speaking about leaders, and he was talking about two different types of leaders, and he said one type of leader is the type of leader that suffers in silence, and he said he's one of those types of leaders, and I'm one of those types of leaders as well. And I had to reflect on that, because I realized, like, Nasset, you're right. I am the type of leader that has suffered in silence in the past. And I just want to keep it a buck with y'all. Like, I ain't doing that no more. Like, we done with that. Like, it's 2022. Ain't no more suffering in silence. Like, that stage of our lives is over. I want to share with y'all. This is gonna sound this part of my conversation is gonna sound a little personal because this message is personal. It's coming from my heart, and it's I'm talking about myself, and I'm hoping that y'all can gain something from this, right? Which is how all my communions start, to be fair, to be clear. I'm always talking about myself. I'm always talking to myself. I'm always teaching myself something. That's how all my communions start. And then I think to myself, well, I hope they could get something from this, but really, I'm really teaching myself. I'm really not teaching y'all. I'm really teaching me. But you all have been here, some of you have been here over the last couple of years where I've shared things about my journey with my anxiety attacks, which started when Sid was in the hospital. He had his crisis a couple of years ago, and I had my first anxiety attack while he was in the hospital, and then I was having anxiety attacks very regularly after that. And since that time, I've significantly reduced the frequency of the anxiety attacks, although they haven't stopped entirely. But what that journey has reminded me or taught me is that suffering is not the same as healing. And that there is a responsibility that each and every one of us have to be committed to healing, right? And I realized that suffering through something feels like you could be healing. I know that from my own personal experience, right? As a leader and as a teacher, I had people come to me and criticize me in ways that were hurtful to me, right? Criticize my work in ways that were hurtful to me. Criticize our work in ways that were hurtful to us. Criticize the temple. Like, y'all, let me tell y'all something. I love this temple and I love the people in this temple. So when people got negative things to say about my family, I take that personally, okay? And so that stuff was hitting me in my heart chakra, right? And there's a natural impulse when you're hurt to want to defend yourself. And what I learned quickly as a leader is that when you defend yourself, people start to think that you're not listening to them, right? You're not receiving their feedback, right? And it wasn't about not receiving their feedback, not for me. I received the feedback, but I felt defensive because I felt like they needed to understand my side of the story. And what I've learned is that people don't always think that leaders have a side of the story. People don't always think that the leader's side of the story is important. People don't always see that the leader's growth journey is important, right? People expect for a leader to come out of the womb fully formed, right? I didn't come out of the womb fully formed. When I became a priestess over 10 years ago, I didn't know how to be a priestess. I didn't know how to be a teacher. I had never been a priestess before. I'd never been a teacher before. I had to learn how to do those things. And sometimes the process of learning causes us to stumble and to do things. And then later you reflect and you reassess and you make adjustments because that's the process, right? And you grow from that. But I have felt at times that there is not always a lot of compassion for the growth process of a leader, the expectation for leaders to have it right all the time. But that doesn't change the fact that I also had to recognize the responsibility that I had as a leader to deal with that, to deal with those feelings, right? To properly heal rather than just stuffing the feelings down, rather than just being frustrated, rather than just being angry, rather than just being filled with grief, right? I had, just like each and every one of us has, a responsibility to properly engage in healing, right? Repression is not healing, right? Holding things in is not healing, right? Silence is not healing, right? And so there is a responsibility that we all have to be committed to our healing. When we talk about healing in the temple, we often talk about the 4 R's. Those of you who have taken First Down Kemet are familiar with the 4 R's. Recognize, relate, release, resolve. where it's our responsibility to recognize what we're feeling, which first means we have to admit we're angry or we're upset or we're in pain or we're sad, which sometimes, again, as a leader is difficult to do because you want to just move past the pain and move into the lesson, right? You're like, okay, somebody's criticized me. How can I use this to make me a better leader? But you don't always want to focus on the fact that their criticism caused you pain, because as a leader, you just like, I just got to eat this, right? And I'm saying this for me as a leader, but I know some of y'all probably feel the same way too. You're like, okay, somebody criticized me. I just have to eat it, right? Well, yes and no, right? It made you feel a certain way. You still have the right to acknowledge your feelings, to acknowledge what you feel, to recognize that you feel that way, and to recognize that you have the right to feel that way. And you have to process that, right? You have to process why you feel that way. What was the thing that triggered the feeling? Was it what they said? Was it how they said it? Was it because of your own ego? Was it because of your own sense of that you're infallible and you don't deserve criticism? Was it because you thought you was doing such a good job? Was it because you didn't realize that you had room for improvement? Was it because you're not open to improvement? Is it because your ears are not open to words of right and true? What's the reason that you're triggered to feel this pain in this moment, right? Then you have to release the feeling. You have to release the emotions, not the lesson. And I often find that the relate and the release steps are the steps that we move past to very quickly. We don't spend enough time relating and releasing. We often want to move to the resolution. We'll be like, okay, I'm gonna move forward in my eye. Okay, you told me what you think I should do, so now I'm gonna adjust. I'm gonna just make some changes. You don't like my hair like this, I'm gonna fix my hair. So I'm gonna fix this thing. I'm gonna fix this. But but you didn't properly relate yet. You didn't properly release yet. So you can't. How are you just moving forward into the resolve and you didn't do the other steps yet, right? How can you make sure to restore my eye? How can you bring things back into balance if you ain't done the other steps? The reality is that the benefit of spiritual community is that we have the opportunity to reflect each other back to ourselves. That's why that's one of the reasons why we gather. We are reflections of one another. We are each other's mirror. And I cannot see myself as clearly without you. I can't. Even when you don't speak, even when you don't say what you're upset about or what you're sad about, if I'm paying attention to you, right? If I'm looking at you and engaging with you authentically, right? Then some signs to let me know of your displeasure, of your unhappiness, of your pain, of your anger, etc., are going to peek through. And that's going to give me some insight into our relationship, which gives me insight into myself, right? And I get that, speaking from my perspective, I get that it's difficult in spiritual community, in any community, for people to be reflections back to leaders, right? Because people don't necessarily want to tell someone of a higher authority that, you look like you in pain. You look like you need to heal. You look like you not doing okay. You look like you struggling. I know you said you're working on that, but it don't look like you're working on that. Do you need some help right now? Are you struggling? What's going on with you? It could be very difficult for someone in a community to say that to another person, especially if that person is of a higher authority. But that doesn't mean that work should not be done, right? Approaching someone and reflecting themselves back to them from an authentic place of compassion and concern is not a demonstration of disrespect, right? That's two different things. And our ancestor Ptah said there is an art to giving sound advice in counsel, right? Which means if you see your brother or sister in pain or struggling and you want to say something, that it is upon you to call upon your Jehudi faculties to be wise and insightful about how you use your words and how you use your actions and how you choose to reflect them back to themselves, right? So you don't just be crass and come off and be like, you don't look so good, right? like you don't just come at them and just be reckless with the mouth. Like, no, don't be disrespectful. We shouldn't be disrespectful to each other, period. That don't have nothing to do with level or title. We just shouldn't be disrespectful to each other either. In any situation, we should be cultivating the art of giving advice and sound counsel in a way that makes it easy for the other person to receive it, for the other person to be open to it, for the other person to recognize the compassion that you have in it, to recognize the concern that you're putting behind it, to recognize the love that's a part of that, right? Because the truth of the matter is that none of us can be at our best if our pain is unresolved. None of us can be at 100%. None of us can be excellent. None of us can harness the fullness and the completeness of our divine potentiality. None of us can access all of the powers of the Neteru that reside in us and do the work of Ma'at that needs to come through us. None of us can do that if we're still in pain, if we're harboring anger, if we're walking around on this earth unhealed and unwilling to heal. I always say, there's that saying in the community there that is an old saying that says we attract what we are. And I think y'all have heard me say this before. I don't like that saying because we don't attract what we are. We are all divine beings. So if that was the case, we would never attract nothing that wasn't divine, right? All of our experiences would be beautiful because we always attracting divinity all the time, everywhere. And that's just not true. Sometimes we attract some stuff to us that ain't so great, but that's because where we are at the moment is not so great. We don't attract what we are, we attract from where we are. So if you're struggling, and if you're suffering, and if you're in pain, and if your vibration is low, and your energy is low, and your emotions are in chaos, then no matter how much of a divine being you are, you cannot attract from a place where you are not. You can only attract from where you are. And again, we're all in spiritual community together. So your low vibration, just like links in a chain, just like spokes on a tire or a wheel, your low vibration affects me. It affects you. It affects all of us. None of us can operate or be at our best if we are not operating at 100%, if we are not giving our best. And none of us can give our best if we're in pain. So I say all of that. I say all of that to say that, like, I've shifted in the last couple of years. I'm still shifting in the last couple of years. I'm still growing. I'm still learning the lessons that come from this experience, right? I'm still healing, just like I'm encouraging all of you all to embrace your healing journey, to be honest about your healing journey, and to dive in no matter how painful it is, because at the end of it all will be rewards that you would never have been able to imagine, right? And you're stopping yourself from being able to get to that place and to being able to get those things because you're afraid to confront your darkness, because you're afraid to confront your anger, because you're afraid to confront your pain. And that fear is also keeping you from confronting your power. It is also keeping you from confronting your potential. It is also keeping you from confronting your greatness. So you have to go through the pain to get to the greatness. So I'm encouraging you to embrace the process of healing and to go through the process of healing in order to come out on the other side a better version of yourself than you are today. I'm grateful to the community around me that has held me accountable to my healing, right? I'm grateful to Wabet Kisa. I'm grateful to Shepset Makatera. I'm grateful to Wabmen Tura, who have kept me accountable to my healing on multiple levels, right? And made sure that I did not slack on caring for and prioritizing myself and my own health, right? And to be clear, prioritizing my healing is not deprioritizing my work. I don't care about my divine charge any less than I did before. I don't care any less about the temple. I don't care any less about the people in the temple or any of you. I'm giving no less energy to the classes that I teach. I'm not giving any less energy to the initiates that I support. I'm only choosing to give more energy to myself, more energy to my own self-care, and more energy and attention to my own health and my own needs, because as I pour into my reservoir, I have more to give to you all. So it's actually a demonstration not only of love for myself, but love for my people, love for my community, that I'm choosing to stay committed to my healing. How you love yourself shows your commitment to your love for your family. Because now you can be a better steward, a better parent, a better spouse of your family, that you are a better person and a better version of yourself. My journey of healing has allowed me to do some really awesome things that I'm super proud of. First of all, I'm proud I lost 70 pounds in the last couple years. I'm super proud of that. Some people will be like, weight's not a big deal. And if that's not a big deal to y'all, that's totally fine. Listen, no judgment. Your size, whatever size you happy at, be your size. I was not happy at that size. I was not happy at that size. I did not want to be that size. I didn't even mean to get that size. I woke up one day and was like, hold up, where does weight come from? It was totally an accident. And so I'm happy. I'm proud. I lost 70 pounds, and I'm still trying to make sure that I keep that balance and keep that in order. Do I nothing for that? I mentioned before I reduced the frequency of my anxiety attacks. I'm super proud of that. And I've committed to my dance journey. Those of you who follow me on Instagram know that I've been committed to my dance journey for over 2 years now. And dance has become a very crucial part of self-care for me. And the best way for me to sum up the commitment that I've made to myself is for me to say that I'm committed to ensuring that the life that I live is more pleasing to myself, right, than it was before. That I am living a life that brings me pleasure, right, that makes me breathe in gratitude and appreciation, that causes me to feel good about who I am and where I am, and that doesn't cause me to feel like I have to suffer through and endure things that are not worthy of me and that I should not be suffering through, that I should not be enduring. For me, pleasure and cultivating a relationship with pleasure has been a major theme over the last few years. And I have so many lessons that are coming from that I am looking forward to sharing with you all. I'm not going to dive into that too deep today because it's just not ready yet. But what I will say to you guys today is that living a life in such a way that you are pleased with your existence is not something that we should demonize. Pleasure is something that this world typically demonizes. We come from, American culture is very much founded on these beliefs and these values that are puritanical, right? And Puritan culture is about purity, right? It's all about like how it is that you keep yourself pure. There's an emphasis on like the virginal energy. There's an emphasis on hiding or being quiet about things that relate to sex, that relate to sensuality, that relate to bodily pleasures, that relate to enjoyment. There's like, you don't laugh aloud, right? You don't enjoy the body. You don't enjoy the senses, right? Like those are some of the things about Puritan culture and puritanical values that have translated into the modern time. And I even see those things reflected in the conscious community, right? This ignoring of sensuality and this desire to like not enjoy the earthly pleasures, if you will, right? We talked about that. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago actually about like this idea that we shouldn't enjoy the world, right? Like we shouldn't, like, don't watch TV, don't watch movies. Like, you can't just do things just for enjoyment. You gotta do, like, you should only read books for educational purposes. Don't just be reading them, right? Right. The struggle. You're supposed to be in the struggle, right? And so it's not supposed to be about enjoyment. There's not supposed to be moments of enjoyment. And a lot of what I've reflected on and realized for myself in the last few years is that internalizing that message is harmful. It's damaging, because life cannot be the struggle all the time. And if you think it is, then you're probably suffering silently, because you're accepting that it's okay to struggle. You're accepting that it's okay for things to be bad. You're accepting for things to be in pain. You're accepting for things not to be the way you want it to be. You're thinking that that's the way that it's supposed to be. You're supposed to struggle. Because how can you have a good life when there's people out there without food? How can you have a good life when there's so much work to do? How can you take a moment to enjoy yourself and to love yourself and love your kids and love your spouse and love your life until the battle is over? You can't take a moment for yourself, right? If you've internalized any of those messages, then on some level you've demonized pleasure. You've demonized the idea, the concept of living a life that you deserve to enjoy and appreciate and have sincere gratitude for. Living a life that brings you satisfaction and peace and balance, and that's not just full of misery, and that's not just full of struggle, right? And I'm gonna just close us off by saying that choosing to embrace that is choosing to turn our backs and to shun and close the door on our Netzert, the goddess Heru. African culture deifies, venerates, and uplifts the divine concept of pleasure and enjoyment and radiance and magnetism. Every African culture that I've ever seen, there is a deification of pleasure. There is an uplifting of pleasure. So as we get back to our true African selves, we have to confront and address the internalized programming that keeps us from feeling like we deserve pleasure, that keeps us from feeling like we deserve lives that we enjoy, that keeps us from feeling like we should love ourselves and love each other and love the world around us. We have to embrace Heru. We have to honor Heru, not just be like, oh yeah, she there, that's cool. No. Honor Heru by living a life of value, right? By living a life of pleasure, by living a life that reflects who we are and what we want and what we deserve for ourselves. One of our ancestors said, the doors to heaven are open to you because of your righteousness. We're not Christians, so we don't think about heaven as like this otherworldly place that we're going to when it's all said and done for us. Heaven is a state of mind. Heaven is a state of being. Heaven is a place we are creating here on earth. The monuments in Kemet show us that, as above, so below, right? They wanted to recreate the cosmos on earth. They wanted to bring heaven down to them. They wanted to have heaven in their culture, in their civilization, in their day-to-day existence. They wanted to experience heaven. So as we live a life of righteousness, as we live a life of ma'at, we are promised that we can experience heaven. And heaven, we calling it heaven, it should be pleasurable. It should be enjoyable. It should be filled with appreciation, things we can appreciate. It should be filled with things that we are grateful for. It should be an experience we look forward to, we're excited about. It should be something that warms us. So how can we say that we want to stick with and hold on to and embrace and desire the struggle if we're trying to recreate heaven here on earth for ourselves? So that's all I'm going to say for now, and I look forward to sharing more about my personal journey and the lessons that I'm learning, and hopefully the lessons that you all can benefit from. I look forward to sharing more with y'all in the future. Do on that, sir.
Doing that.
Yeah, doing that too.
All right, everybody, that's it for today. We've got in the chat, for those of you, if you feel like you got something out of today's message, we appreciate the energy that you send to us in the form of your donations. That reciprocity through donations is most appreciated, and allows us to continue to do the work that we do. So donations sent in reciprocity can be done by Cash App to $Temple of Anu, or by PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com. The reading of the year for 2022 is available at templeofanu.org in the shop. And we will be back here in 2 weeks on Sunday, March 20th for our next regularly scheduled communion. And we look forward to seeing you all at that time. Dua, everybody. Show me what's up.
What's up?